I arrived in Constantinople in the spring of 1887, a weary traveler seeking respite from the rigors of my trade. As an English merchant dealing in textiles, I had seen many corners of the world, yet there was something about the city, the way its ancient stones whispered secrets, that unsettled me. It was not the place itself, but rather an event that I still cannot explain, one that has left me haunted to this very day. I had been invited by an Ottoman acquaintance, a businessman named Yusuf Effendi, to visit a mosque known for its architectural beauty and historical significance. The Süleymanî Mosque, he assured me, was a place of tranquility, where one could find solace even in the most turbulent of times. I accepted the invitation readily, eager to glimpse the renowned structure with my own eyes. As we entered, the cool air inside was a relief from the sweltering heat of the afternoon. The vast prayer hall stretched before us, its domed ceiling towering above like the heavens themselves. The scent of aged wood, burning incense, and the faint musk of centuries-old stone filled my senses. I followed Yusuf as he moved toward a quieter corner, where he knelt in prayer. Though I did not share his faith, I respected the sacredness of the moment and stood aside, absorbing the grandeur of the space. It was then that I noticed him. A man, dressed in a European-style frock coat, stood near one of the grand pillars, his back turned to me. Something about his presence was immediately wrong. He did not move, did not kneel, did not even shift his weight. He simply stood still as death. His posture was stiff, unnatural. For reasons I could not articulate, a chill ran down my spine. I turned away, chastising myself for my unease. It was only a fellow visitor, perhaps lost in thought. And yet, as I stole another glance, I saw that his head had tilted ever so slightly, as if listening. Yusuf finished his prayers and beckoned me toward the courtyard. I was eager to leave the suffocating presence of the silent figure behind. As we stepped outside, I could not resist the urge to look back once more. The man was gone. I did not see him leave. There was no echo of retreating footsteps, no shadow shifting in the vast chamber. He had vanished as though he had never been there at all. That evening, my thoughts remained troubled. Over dinner, I mentioned the man to Yusuf, describing his peculiar stillness. My host's face darkened. He set down his cup with a quiet clink. "There have been incidents," he murmured. "A few months ago, a man was found dead inside the mosque, right where you saw him. A foreigner, dressed as you described. A cold dread settled into my bones. I stammered, asking how he had died. Yusuf hesitated. "It was not natural," he finally said. "They say he was running from someone, or something. But no one knows who. The only thing we do know is that he was terrified." I did not sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the still figure standing by the pillar, listening. The next morning, I resolved to leave Constantinople. But as I packed my belongings, I found a small, folded note slipped under my door. The handwriting was unfamiliar, the ink slightly smudged as if written in haste. It read, "Do not return to the mosque. He watches." I felt my blood turn to ice. How had this note found its way to my room? Was it a warning? A threat? I rushed to the door and peered down the dimly lit corridor of my inn. It was empty, save for the distant echo of footsteps retreating into the night. Despite my fear, a dreadful curiosity gnawed at me. Against all reason, I returned to the mosque that evening. The corridors were eerily silent, the call to prayer long finished. Shadows stretched across the marble floors, and I tread lightly, my heart hammering in my chest. As I neared the grand prayer hall, I felt it, an oppressive stillness like the very air held its breath. And then, in the dim glow of the hanging lamps, I saw him again. The same man standing exactly where I had seen him before. But this time he was facing me. His face was gaunt, eyes hollow and sunken. His lips were parted slightly, as if whispering something I could not hear. My feet felt rooted to the spot, my instincts screaming at me to flee. But then he moved. His arm lifted, his trembling fingers pointing past me toward the entrance. And then he spoke, his voice hoarse and broken. "Run." I did not need to be told twice. I turned and sprinted from the mosque, my breath ragged, my mind racing with terror. I did not stop until I reached my lodgings, bolting the door behind me. I stayed awake all night, listening, waiting, but nothing came. The next morning I found another note, this time on my bedside table. "It is not over. I left Constantinople that very day, vowing never to return. Even now, years later, I cannot shake the memory. I do not know who the man was nor what he feared. But I do know this: some places are best left undisturbed and some warnings are best heeded. And I will never ever go back."